with the products that I use. And I mean, my brother can attest to, you know, these baits here, that's all I throw. I mean, not just, I'm saying as far as like, I throw other yum and booyah baits, but as far as like, if I'm throwing a beaver, this is what I'm throwing. If I'm throwing a spinner bait, this is what I'm throwing. I don't throw anything else, but my, you know, I've aligned myself, tried to align myself with all the best products and the lures that make me successful. So these are very, you know, good lures, and I've had a lot of success using them. Won a lot of money with these baits. So with that being said, I'm going to start off with, we're talking about mosquito and ant. Well, first I'll talk about fishing in general too. Like, a lot of you guys may not understand, like, fishing compared to other sports, it's a little bit different. You know, if you go to play basketball, football, or baseball, they're all sports, but the places where you play them, the field that you play on, they're all the same. The fields are all, dimension-wise, they're all the same. So football field's always 100 yards, 50 yards. You know, baseball fields, you got first base, second base, third base, and home plate, and an outfield. None of that changes. In fishing, every lake you go to, every state you go into, it's all different. So you can, you know, in baseball and football and basketball, you can focus on how to shoot a ball, or how to hit a ball, or how to catch a ball, and that's all you need to focus on. You don't need to focus on where's first base, or I don't even know where third base is. It might take me 2 days to find third base. You don't have to worry about that. You already know where everything's at. It's all the same. But in fishing, you got to worry about where's the points in the lakes, where's the stumps, where's the riprap, where's the rock piles, where's the roadbed. You have no idea where any of that's at. It's all, a lot of it's underwater, and you can't see under the water from the surface. So every lake we go to, it's a lot different. So that makes fishing a more of a challenge. So you could be the best flipper, you can be the best, you know, crankbait fisherman out there. You can be the best at certain techniques, like football, you can be the best receiver, the fastest running back, the best quarterback. You're going to be successful no matter what in those sports if you're the best. But in fishing, you can be the best crankbait fisherman, but you go to Chautauqua or somewhere where there's a bunch of grass and you're not cranking, you know, you're out of luck. You might have to flip, or, you know, vice versa. So there's a big difference between those sports and what fishing is. Fishing, you need to be more well-rounded. Yes, you need to be good at your casting techniques, pitching techniques, lure techniques, but you also have to have an understanding of your environments. So there's a whole realm of difference between professional fishing and, you know, other sports. It's still a sport, but it's a whole different ground. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the techniques. I'm going to start out first with flipping and pitching, because to me that's my favorite technique. And if you fish a lot in Ohio, it's almost your #1 technique. There, you know, you can ask 100 fishermen, and flipping and pitching is going to be the #1 technique. What I like to use, depending on your height, you guys are a lot, some of you are shorter than others. You want to grab a rod that's not too tall or long for your body size at first. When you get older, pretty much when, you know, at an adult age, we use a standard 7'6" or 7'8", or even an 8-foot rod. Like I said, you want to match a rod that's not too big and cumbersome, where it's going to be too long for you and you're going to have trouble pitching and flipping. So you might want to start out with a 7-foot rod. You can pitch and flip with that. But what I prefer is a 7'8", and this is an Enigma rod. And what I like is like a parabolic bend. You can see how this, like a fast action and a parabolic, the difference is on a fast action, you have a real flexy tip. And what that does is it creates a lot of spring in your rod, and you can cast. It's good for casting. But for pitching, when I present this bait into a bush, I don't want that rod really springy, because then I lose feel of the bait. You know, you get on a limb, and if the rod's real springy, you can't feel the difference between a bite and a limb. But with a parabolic rod, like this one, I can get more sensitivity because my rod's not flexing. So I have direct contact with my line and my jig, or my whatever I'm flipping. So this is why I like a parabolic bend. You can see it bends all the way down to here, you know, all the way down, and it's strong. It's not real flexy. The size of line I like to use, normally I'm pitching and flipping with 17-pound fluorocarbon. And the fluorocarbon I like is silver thread. Silver thread, I've been using this since I've been with Pradco, and that's been like before 2006. And I've used this 100% of the time, and it's one of the strongest, lines out there. I haven't never needed to really fish with any other type of line for fluorocarbon than silver thread. So I really like the silver thread a lot. 17 is the norm. I have gone down to 14. I rarely go above 17 in Ohio. This stuff's so strong that I never have trouble. I've caught 7 and 8 pounders like in trees that are like wrapped up. Down south and everything with 17, and I don't have any troubles. So 17 is a real rounded weight. I do pitch and flip with braid. If I do use braid for pitching and flipping, I usually go with 40 pound or 50 pound in Ohio. Down south, I might go up a little bit more, but I really like the Dominate brand. It's new out, and it's got an 8-carrier strand, so it's a rounder, and it's got this slick coating on it, so it almost feels like fluorocarbon going through your guides. It's not real rough. Normally when you run braid through, you hear that, you can feel it going through your guides. That's a new line, it's really slick. Tough Line is their other brand. This one's more of the traditional braid. It's not an 8-carrier strand, but it's still a braid where, like, if I'm around a lot of lily pads and vegetation, I like throwing this because it has a little bit more of like slicing. So if I'm frog fishing, I might throw a little bit more. This has a little bit more abrasion to it, and you can cut through pads. You can cut through a lot of vegetation with this one. But if I'm around a lot of wood and a lot of stuff where I need to get that bait to slither in and out, I like the more coated lines, like the Dominate. But like I said, 40 or 50 is about all I use for flipping. Down south, if I'm on Okeechobee, I'm using 65 maybe. But up here in Ohio, you want to stick with about 40 or 50. The reels that I like to use are Quantums, but I like a fast gear ratio, 8-to-1, 7-to-3, 6-to-1 at the lowest for pitching and flipping. Reason being is when I pitch out there, I want to be able to first reel the bait back as fast as I can so I can make another presentation. If I don't reel it back fast, all I'm doing is just wasting time reeling it in. So in a day's time in a tournament, we only have 8 hours. So if you're wasting 10 seconds at a time or 5 seconds, whether it be with a slow ratio, you're just wasting time. So that's why we like a fast gear ratio. I can get that bait out there and back in, and then back out. So it's really fast. The other thing good is, a lot of times with this heavy rod and this heavier line, you set the hook, the fish comes flying out of the water, and it flies 15 feet sometimes or more. Well, you need that fast speed to catch up to it to keep the line tight. Otherwise, you'll be cranking, and by the time you get your line tight, fish is off the hook. So that's another reason why I like a fast gear ratio for these presentations. But mainly, 9 times out of 10, it's just to get the bait back fast so you can make another pitch. Now you notice how I'm pitching. I don't use a lot of arm movement. And the reason being is, if you're flipping and pitching, especially in Ohio, there's a lot of buckbrush and bushes and trees that you're pitching to. We have a lot of wood in Ohio. There's grass too, but a lot of the wood, you can't be using a long 8-foot rod and holding your arm up, because you see how high that goes. You got trees all around you and objects and stuff. So I try to keep my rod and reel at a minimum, and I just shoot it out like that, and I come back. So basically all I'm using is my wrist, and I can still go far. I can hit the wall, and that's just with my wrist motion. So the way I set that up is I loosen, this is your spool tension, and this is your magnetic braking. So some of them have centrifugal force braking, but they're all relatively the same purpose. So I like to, on pitching and flipping, I like to first start out with this being on 0, and then I'll adjust this to get it kind of loose. So you can see how fast this falls. And if I didn't stop the spool, it would overrun. Okay, for pitching, you want that. For casting, crankbaits or something in the wind, you don't want that. But for pitching, you want it to go fast. Reason for that is sometimes I gotta slow the bait, and then I gotta let it speed back up to get underneath things. So if there's a limb there, I might drop it down, and then I might give it a little bit more. So that gives me that ability to manipulate my lure better with the free spooling. So that's why I like the free spool. But all I do is I use the motion of the bait to bring it towards me, and then I just drop the rod back down and pitch. So it's just a little, that's all you do. So your reel handles go down a little bit, and I can pitch right there. And if you practice this at home, put a little coffee mug or bowl or whatever, and get your rod and get in the house. Get a shorter rod because you're going to be hitting the ceilings at home unless you got nice high, tall ceilings. And practice at home. Just do this little pitch. And I taught myself to do it left-handed. I'm not a lefty, I'm a righty. 100% righty. And at first it feels really awkward, but after doing it, in a while, I was actually better with my left after a while, after practicing so much. I was actually better with my left than my right. And that's just because I haven't been using my right. So, but the reason you want both sides, all right, because you got trees and different angles and obstacles. If you have to always do with your right hand, your best is to go this direction with your right. If you have a tree, if you're coming around and the tree's this way, there's really no way to bring it around and go this way, you know. So if you're left, if you can use your left, now you can go to this left side. And then you can go to the right side. So if I'm coming in and there's two trees sticking here, I can go left, then I can reel it in. It's hard with this ceiling. And then I can go right. So that's why I like both, being versatile, both hands. And it's, like I said, it's a simple thing. You can go and teach yourself by practice. Lures that I like to flip. This right here is a new bait from Booyah. It's the bankroll jig. It has a unique head, and it's not going to probably stand up as good in here because it doesn't have water, but it stands up like this, and these crawls will float up in the air and they'll wag. And I like that around rock and wood, not a grass jig, okay? Grass jigs, I have different jigs. They have more of a rounded head, and the point is straight out instead of up at an angle like this. These ones I use for rock and wood. Weights I like to use, I rarely go under a quarter. And if mostly 3/8 half for in Ohio. Reason for that is you want that bait to penetrate a lot of thick cover. So when I say penetrate cover, there could be a bush and it could be 4 foot round. Okay? When I pitch that bush, I always try to concentrate and find the best hole to get in there. And that's where your practice and technique will come in play, because you need to present that bait to where it doesn't go over too many limbs. The more limbs it goes over, that means the more limbs you got to fight a fish over to get out. And that's where a lot of guys lose their fish, is trying to get them out over limbs, and the fish gets tangled, and then they get stuck in there, and by the time they get in there, the fish shakes and thrashes off. So I always try to look for the best nook and cranny where I can get underneath, mostly underneath. If you can get underneath all the limbs, then you have nothing to go over. So I'm always looking for those targets, but with this jig, I still want to be able to get inside the bush. There's big right there. I always want to get inside the tree or inside the bush, and you want this bait to fall down in the bush. If you land on the edge of the bush and there's nothing in between you and the bush, it has a tendency to come back to the boat. Well, sometimes the fish's strike zones are small, especially around the spawn and especially around cold fronts. They don't like to move a lot. So that's why these baits are good to drop right in their house, because it stays in their environment and it stays there. A spinner bait winds right past it. Buzz baits past it. They might not be feeding up. So that's why these presentations are good, especially for pressured bass too, which we have a lot of that in Ohio. So that's why I like to pitch and flip a lot in Ohio, because this bait's going to fall down. Let's say this is a bush here. Okay, this is a good example. The fish is in the middle there. If you drop this bait, the force of your line, and the lure is going to fall over here. If that fish is in there, he's not, 9 times out of 10, might not come out here unless he's really active. So what happens is, if you get it in the bush, now you can sit there and yo-yo this bait, and it doesn't move. It's still in the bush. But if you didn't have it in there and you move your rod, here's how far it goes. And I'm just moving this a little bit. Look at that. You can see how far it moves away from the fish. So that's why it's important to get into cover. Now I can move it and it's staying in the cover. That's the big difference. Okay. The other lures that I like to flip and pitch are soft plastics. Pretty much the only two that I flip the most for wood and rock are the young woolly bugs, which is like a sweet beaver. And this is one of my favorite colors for Ohio. It's called Virgo Blue. It's a mixture of black with red and blue flake, and then blue on the other side. So it's got the best of both. And all it looks is like this. And I usually take this bait and I pull these apart. So it's got a little bit of a flare to it, like crawls sticking out. This one I rig on a 5/0 hook, EWG style hook. I have one here. And I'm sure you guys can, I Texas rig it so you can YouTube that. But the other bait I throw is a Young Viber King. And this is a special tube. It's not like your traditional tubes. Most tubes, I don't have one here, most tubes are dipped. And when they dip them, that's how they get their thickness and shape. The problem with dipping is they're great for like jig heads and throwing out in Lake Erie. But the problem with flipping them is their heads are hollow. And the other thing is they're smooth. So once you Texas rig a regular tube and you go through the head, first of all, there's not much grip there because it's hollow. The other thing is when you Texas rig it and you have this hook on the outside, once you get into bushes or get in cover, it has a tendency to wear out that portion of the tube. Then you end up getting snagged every other cast. Then you're pitching in there and you're getting hung up all the time, and you don't want to get hung up because then you spook all the fish when you have to go in there and get your bait. And if you have to break it off, it's almost impossible sometimes if you have heavier line. So you don't want to get hung up. The reason I like this bait is it has these ribs. And what the ribs do is it protects that hook point, but yet it's still got this tube silhouette, and it's got the ability to stay snagless and weedless for a longer period of time. The other thing that's good about it, has a solid head. The other thing good about it is it always goes straight and true. The way these are injection molded instead of dipped, it runs, they're perfect all the time. You don't get, you can get tubes out of a pack and you look at them and they're all like curved. Sometimes they have the head a little bit different, or there's a little bit extra plastic here and there. These are always the same. So these ones are very easy to rig, perfectly straight. So when you reel the bait in, back in the day we used to test our tube to see if we had them rigged the right way by just dragging them alongside the boat to see if they wouldn't twirl or if they would come straight. These ones, like I said, they're no-brainers. They're rigged straight and they'll come perfectly out, through the water. And one of the things that helps with that is when it does come straight, normally the hook point's up. So when you go to hook a fish, 9 times out of 10, you're hooking them in the roof of the mouth. Whereas a lot of tubes, your hook percentage is a lot lower. So that's another key thing. You get higher hooking ratios, which is always what we strive for, especially for, even for fun. You never want to lose a 5 or 6 pound bass or a fish of a lifetime. And in tournaments, you can never afford to lose a fish, especially if it's a good one. I usually have rigged all my plastics with a tungsten. The weights that I normally use for flipping wood would be about a 1/4 ounce at the lightest, all the way up to 1/2 ounce. And most of the time I'm doing a 5/16. I really been falling in love with the new 5/16 ounce. It's a newer, they haven't been making them for a long time, but now we got the 5/16 and then the 7/16. I like those oddball sizes because it kind of fits that niche. 1/4 ounce is a little bit too light, but then 3/8 sometimes is too heavy. So it fits that niche where you get the right fall rate and you get the right feel, and the bass doesn't feel all that heavy weight. Sometimes you want a faster fall though, so you have to experiment with that on your own. But I usually peg all my weights. I'll have them pegged at the top. That keeps the weight, and especially in bushes, it's almost, you always have it pegged. Because you don't want your weight to separate. If there's limbs, like let's say this is a limb, you don't want your weight to fall here and your bait to fall there. So that's why I want the bait and weight together, so it falls right together. The reason for that is if the weight's here and the lure's here, has a tendency to get hung up, wrapped up, and again, you're getting all fouled up in a bush, and you can ruin that chance of getting bit or hooking a fish.